It's the ultimate annoying duo showdown. In one corner, we've got Anakin and Obi-Wan and Dooku captured. In the other corner, we've got Chopper and AP5. Fight! Welcome back to Rebels Revisited. Honestly, I can't imagine that this is going to be very long, but hey, let's do this. This is Warhead Revisited. In this episode, the rest of the Ghost crew goes away on a training exercise while Zeb is tasked with staying behind to guard the base, which means that Zeb is lucky enough to get to hang out with AP5 and Chopper for a little while. They find a mysterious protocol droid close to the base, which seems helpful at first, but is actually an Imperial infiltrator droid. Now it's up to Zeb to save the day. AP5, as always, is iconic in this episode.
Counting crates? Not exactly my idea of fun.
Is that because you never learned to count? I can teach you.
What? Well, that gives me an idea.
What? Really? You can have those. May I remind you that we are in an area housing high explosive munitions? Perhaps not the best place to be firing blasters. We were lucky enough the first time.
You could have told me that before.
I just told you now. Sorry for my delayed response. I was just rather stunned by the fact that you had a good idea.
AP5 is genuinely so funny, but the thing is, his comedy just, wouldn't land if it weren't for the delivery. Stephen Stanton is so good. On paper, AP5's lines, they're a little bit cliche as far as, comedy and cartoon goes, but Stephen Stanton's deadpan delivery makes every line hilarious. Man. Honestly, I hate to say this. Honestly, I'm just not quite sure what to talk about in this episode. This has kind of always been... I hate to say it. I hate to say this. This has always been my least favorite episode. And I don't like saying that about any episode because, as I've said many times, there is not a single episode of this show that I don't like or I don't enjoy watching. But one thing that I think is a strength of this show is how almost every episode has a purpose. I think most of the episodes that are considered filler are actually misunderstood as being filler, and most of the time episodes that aren't plot-heavy pull their weight by working with the characters, and to me that makes them not really filler. But this episode, I just struggle to find its purpose, I guess, is all. You take a break from the plot to do a Zeb-centric episode, but what does this episode do for Zeb? One thing I appreciated was getting to see Zeb's rank and authority acknowledged. We find out that Zeb is chief of security, we see other rebels on the base referring to him as captain. I love details like that, just because we aren't often reminded of it with Zeb. Other than that, though, the only work that this episode does with Zeb is having him cleverly solving a problem that he created. The main message that's being sent about Zeb's character is, hey, look, Zeb's smart, actually, but I never felt like that had to be proven to the audience. Zeb may be a comedic character, he may be the muscle of the team, but I've never perceived him as dumb. So I guess I just don't understand why the episode tried to, reinforce his intelligence in the way that it did. And it just didn't do much more than that. It's a lot of fun to watch. But other episodes in the same vein just kind of land better somehow, I think. In other episodes that primarily exist to be a bit of fun, they seem to lean a little harder into the fun. And there's something kind of special about how zany they are. Episodes like Idiot's Array, Brothers of the Broken Horn, The Forgotten Droid, Double Agent Droid, they're indulgently chaotic. And even then, Brothers of the Broken Horn and The Forgotten Droid, they had a nice side of character work. But this episode feels like Fight or Flight without the character work. And Fight or Flight works because of its character work. So I just think if they wanted to do an episode that was just kind of fun, then they had to take up the shenanigans a notch if they weren't going to take up the character work a notch. And because of that, it just falls a little flat in comparison to the other episodes for me, but that is not to say that I don't like it. Like, it makes it sound like I don't like the episode, so I hate saying it, and that's, like, not what I want to get across. I almost wanted to skip doing this one because I just didn't want to say any of this. This episode is fun to watch, and it's a nice way to spend 22 minutes. I like it, and I will say it is a nice way to slow down between a couple of very plot-heavy episodes. You know, this is sandwiched right in the middle of Ghost of Geonosis, and then Trials of the Darksaber, and Legacy of Mandalore, so it is a nice little slowdown in the middle of all of that. But when I sit down to do this project of mine, when I sit down to do Rebels Revisited, what I want to do is figure out the complexities and the nuance within each episode, you know, find things that I can connect to other parts of the series, like stuff like that. Because this isn't necessarily a review series. I'm not exactly setting out to, like, objectively talk about how good each episode is. That's not really what I've set out to do here. What I want to do here is to analyze the series, and to analyze every episode. And I just struggle to do that with this one. I just struggle to find things to analyze. That doesn't mean I think it's bad, or that I don't like watching it. I just kind of struggle to, like, find the little things to pick out, which is fine. It just makes it harder to discuss this. One part of the episode I really like, though, is the last scene, which is between Thrawn and Kallus. In the scene immediately before this, Kallus was reporting to the Ghost crew as Fulcrum. Then he turns right around and talks to Thrawn.
How did this happen, Agent Kallus?
I suspect the rebels captured a unit in the field and reprogrammed it to self-destruct upon its return to base. Quite ingenious, really.
I'm inclined to agree.
You seem in surprisingly good spirits, considering this loss.
Loss, you say? The rebels may have protected the location of their base for now, but in doing so, they have narrowed my search. Before today, they could have been hiding in any of 1,000 systems, but now I know they are almost certainly on one of the 94 planets surveyed by my infiltrators. The rebels have won this battle, but the war will be ours.
Kallus being Fulcrum and Imperial Agent in back-to-back scenes really builds the tension of his life at this stage. I liked getting to see him play both sides in succession like that. And of course, I love the Kallus and Thrawn dynamic. Kallus is trying to help the rebellion, and he thinks he can because he's on the inside, but Thrawn is always a step ahead of him, which is frustrating for Kallus, but it's great drama for us to watch. The two of them are also kind of known but unspoken enemies. Like, Thrawn has to suspect what Kallus is up to, and Kallus has to suspect that Thrawn suspects him. That much was hinted at in the episode an Inside Man, but neither of them were about to say it. Not yet. So that's just some really great tension to watch right there. Just some fun drama for us as the audience. Overall, this is a fun episode and a nice way to spend 22 minutes. I don't want anyone to think that I don't like it. It just doesn't have a lot to dig into for me. That's all. I'd really love to hear some other takes if you have them. I feel like I have to have missed something because I couldn't find much to talk about. So give me your Warhead takes. I hope you have some. Now, our next episode is one of the show's absolute best, Trials of the Darksaber, which I am so psyched to cover. Until then, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you always.